If you've ever asked yourself, is this intuition or is this anxiety? You're going to love this episode. My name is Amber Paloma, and I am the host of The Lighthouse Within. This podcast is all about helping you face changes in life with more peace and more joy, both the changes you choose and the changes you don't choose. This is the third episode of the Rebuilding Your Sense of Self series, and I am so excited about this episode. I used to be that person who would be in a situation crippled by what felt like anxiety, second guessing my decisions and my intuition. And I know from speaking to others that I'm not alone. Many of you have been in a situation where you feel like you know the right answer, but you struggle to act on it because you're wondering if you're just overreacting. And what I have noticed is that sometimes the real problem isn't that you can't tell the difference between anxiety and intuition. Sometimes the problem is that you don't have the self trust to act on it. So today we are talking about intuition and rebuilding trust with ourselves. There are so many reasons trust with ourselves can be broken, from everything from making a past mistake that you still feel shame over, or even to feeling like your self confidence has plummeted because you've been in a season of so much change that you don't even know who you are anymore. I personally struggled with a lot of this self doubt, and it led to a lot of people pleasing and staying in situations longer than I should have without saying anything. And as I've healed this part of me over the past year, I have noticed that my intuition has become insanely loud. And now it's much easier for me to know if something is right for me. So, if you are anywhere between a fall, winter, or spring season of change, rebuilding your self trust is critical to moving back into a summer season where you are thriving. So, today we will be talking about two methods you can use to repair your self trust and trust your intuition more. Let's get started. If this topic resonates with you, I have an entire ebook on anxiety and intuition that I just updated with exercises to help you improve your self-trust. You can go ahead and grab that in the link in the show notes, but this will be a phenomenal tool for you. I have heard from people who have used the ebook that now the difference seems so crystal clear that they don't know how they didn't see it before. So again, that's in the show notes. Go ahead and grab it. So let's first talk about why we struggle with self trust. What causes it to dwindle over time? There are so many reasons this can happen. One being that your brain is wired to avoid pain. And honestly, thank you to my brain. Because who wants that? Who wants to be in a moment where you're feeling pain and hopelessness and fear? Nobody wants that. And one of the first things that can come up with your brain when it's trying to avoid pain is a fear of recommitting past mistakes. You might think something like, I've messed something like this up in the past, so how can I trust myself to make the right decisions now? Think of it like a child who touched a hot stove and years later still doesn't want to go anywhere near the kitchen. Another reason that self trust can dwindle or sometimes never even come to exist is that you might have grown up with, dated, or even befriended someone who constantly downplayed your emotions, your wants, your needs, and even your values. So you learn to second guess yourself or even downplay your emotions yourself. I know that I absolutely struggled with this, and I had a really big problem with validating my own emotions. And that was one of the reasons that I really wanted to do this series, because in healing that part of myself, I gained back so much confidence in the face of change. Another common one that can come up for a lot of us, especially if you are a high achiever, is perfectionism. And this perfectionism can lead you to fearing failure. You probably hold yourself to a really high standard, and so you don't want to make the wrong choices because you probably face a lot of value in being someone who is on top of things, who has it together, and who gets the job done correctly the first time around. I know I especially struggled with the last two of these reasons, and it caused me to have a lot of self doubt. And as I said before, stay in situations longer than I should have without saying anything. Sometimes you have to leave the situation entirely, but sometimes it's about setting boundaries or speaking up for yourself to make the situation more suitable for you. And because I wouldn't do any of this stuff, I'd beat myself up about it afterwards, tearing myself down, which ironically fed into the cycle of self abandonment that caused me to have so much anxiety all the time and continue to break trust with myself. But here's the good news. There's always good news. You can absolutely repair this trust. You can absolutely heal from any past traumas. Your brain is incredible. And thanks to neuroplasticity, you can rewrite a new story whenever you choose to. So let's make that moment right now. Last week, we were talking about values, and I want to build on that conversation. They are so important because they can guide us and guide our intuition. If you struggle with knowing the difference between anxiety versus intuition, that's all in my ebook. But for the purposes of this episode, let's do a quick review. Anxiety is a signal your nervous system sends you that you are perceiving a threat, okay? This signal is very fear based and can grow louder and more chaotic, dragging your fears further and further into the future with worst case scenarios. So, for example, one moment you might be worried that you won't get an application in on time, and the next moment you're worried that you'll never find a job again, you'll end up on the streets without a home, and that nobody loves you. That's good old anxiety. And the best way to handle this voice is to ask yourself, what is the threat that I'm perceiving? And what do I need to feel safe? Intuition, on the other hand, is an immediate cognition. It's a voice that convicts you, sometimes without any evidence. And here is the kicker for all my overthinkers. No amount of overthinking leads you to intuition. Okay, so you can go ahead and stop that. It is not going to help you here because it is something you simply know. And this is truly a great power, my friends. The ability to simply know something, sometimes without evidence, is a great power. And with great power comes great responsibility. Okay, so don't go off the cuff making decisions until you have honed in on this voice. Okay. And I think where it can get tricky, especially if you struggle with self doubt, is that intuition might always be available to you, but sometimes they can both be activated at the same time. So, what does that look like? For example, your intuition might convict you of something, but because of self doubt, you don't act on it. You then stay in that situation without addressing the issue, and now your anxiety is perceiving a threat to your well being and starts going haywire. The longer you go without addressing this threat, the more out of control anxiety will become. Let me give you an example that happened to me last year because you might be like, what does that look like? Okay, you might hear yourself in this little story. Okay. So I remember towards the end of last year, I suddenly got a massive wave of anxiety as I was working on a project. And I mean, at this point, I felt so overwhelmed. It had been building over a few days, maybe weeks, if I'm being honest with myself. And at this point, I was so overwhelmed. Like, I got to the point where I had to push my chair away from my desk and just bend over with my head between my legs. And I started heavy breathing. And then I started crying. But I remembered my own checks from the Anxiety Intuition ebook. And I asked myself, okay, girl, what is the threat you are perceiving? Because right now I feel like I'm in full blown anxiety mode. And immediately I heard the frantic voice of anxiety say to me, I have too much work on my plate. I'm going to fail at everything and then I'm going to get fired from my job. Thank you, anxiety, for the doom and gloom. The next question in the ebook is this valid to me? Is this threat valid? And it was. I really did have too much work on my plate, but that also didn't have to mean that I was going to fail. So the next question is, what do I need to feel safe? And the answer seemed very obvious to me at that point. I needed a manageable workload. So after all of that, I checked in with my intuition like, hey, intuition, what do you have to say about this? Am I overreacting? And intuition said, no, you are abandoning your need to rest and you're not respecting your own limits around workload. It's time to set boundaries with yourself and with others. So I said it before, but I'll reiterate it now. It never has to be, is this intuition or is this anxiety? Because intuition is always available to you. You can always tune into intuition. And if we're building off of the values conversation, one good check that you can perform for yourself is, does this align with my values? Or am I abandoning myself right now? Because when you are abandoning yourself and when you're abandoning your values, you are often going to cause anxiety to get triggered because it is signaling a threat to your well being. Okay. So when the decision that you are presented with is in alignment with your intuition, even if it's a scary decision, okay, like you're like, oh, I'm going to have to go have a hard conversation right now. But you will feel better about it because you're like, okay, well, this is in alignment with who I am. But when you are making a decision that abandons who you are, your values, your wants, your needs, your emotions, you are going to trigger anxiety because it's going to signal a threat. Now, with that said, your intuition is a frequency like a radio station, right? So we talked about how it's always available to you, and you just have to tune your radio to the right station. Now, the problem is that you're probably getting static from the other stations. In this case, the other stations sound a lot like the voices of fear, ego, anxiety, jealousy, whatever. You name the voice of the day, okay? We all have them. Insecurities, etc., etc. So you need to tune your radio to the station of intuition. And here's the thing, intuition is very wise and wisdom never shouts. So make sure you have the radio tuned correctly. So what does it look like to tune your radio to the right frequency? Last year, I was reading a great book called Don't Believe Everything You Think. And it's so good for anyone who is an overthinker. But he posits that intuition is actually connected to source energy, or what some people might refer to as God or universe. That's why sometimes it can convict you without evidence, but you feel like you simply know something and you are convicted of it. A good example is when you take the wrong turn and you suddenly get flushed with a feeling like you shouldn't be there. Or when you're in a moment when everything is going wrong and you get this sudden idea that doesn't quite make sense but saves the day. Or have you ever been around a group of people and you're just like, oof, these people aren't my friends? That is intuition. And I think it's kind of cool that we have this lifeline in us that connects us to the life pulse of the universe. So if intuition is source energy, then one of the ways we can lean into intuition is by connecting to it more. What does this look like? This looks like inviting stillness into your day every day. Why is that? Because intuition is not something you can arrive to by thinking. It is something you simply have to listen to. So the way that you can be able to listen to intuition is by quieting the other voices that are fighting for attention in your mind. Okay. Less thinking, more quiet. If you are a faith-based person, this could look like spending more time in prayer or other spiritual practices that connect you to source energy. Another great way to connect with source energy is to spend time meditating. Meditation is phenomenal for your brain, okay? And it can be an actual meditation or it could be an Issa Rae meditation. I love Issa Rae. I don't know if there are any other like insecure fans out there, but I love her. She is so funny. And I was watching this podcast where she was like, yeah, so I meditate every morning. And they were like, oh, wow, like, what do you do? Like, do you follow like a certain application? Do you have a program that you recommend? And she was like, no, it's not actual meditation. I just sit quietly with my coffee for 10 minutes every morning. I'm like, that's so Issa. But I still love this because it's about inviting quiet into your life so that you can hear intuition instead of all the other voices. If none of those options resonate with you, then I want to recommend spending more time in nature. This could be as simple as going on a quiet area in a nearby park where you can hear the rustling leaves of trees and birds chirping, because this is also source energy. For me personally, I don't know if any of you have ever tried meditating, but like I cannot quiet my mind sometimes. I really struggle to do it. And I know like the more you practice meditation, the more it will come to you easily. But because I struggle with that and because intuition is about quieting the other voices so that you can hear intuition, I find that in nature, I'm able to do that more easily. And that's because nature acts as a co-regulator. It helps your nervous system calm down. And in helping your nervous system be soothed, it allows you to quiet those other voices in your head like fear, ego, anxiety, insecurity, and to be able to hear that voice of wisdom in your head, which we call intuition. Now, let's address the elephant in the room because there are a lot of reasons self trust can be broken. But I want to talk about the fear of making a mistake, especially if you've made a mistake in the past. First, I want to offer you a reframe. The past mistake can either be the source of your wounds or the source of your wisdom, and the choice is entirely up to you. I mean it. You can decide right now, I will make that mistake the source of my wisdom because I am bigger than one moment in my life. I am the author, and I decide where the story goes next. Because now, with that mistake that you committed in the past or that decision that you made in the past that you feel shame or guilt over, now you have a reference for what the wrong thing looks and feels like. You have a reference for all the signs your nervous system sent you that it wasn't a good fit situation for you. All the exhaustion, the anxiety, the headaches, the pit you felt in your stomach, the lump you felt in your throat, those are your body's stop signs. That's your body waving a little red flag saying, pay attention. Your body is always sending you stop signs and go signs. And there will be a section on this in the ebook because the more you understand your stop signs and your go signs, the easier it will be to move differently in future situations. And if you are like me, where you struggle to validate your own emotions because you experienced a lot of invalidation from other people, either family members, past romantic partners, or even friends, getting in touch with that part of yourself is so important to rebuilding your sense of self, making better decisions for yourself that lead you to a life of alignment, and also to repairing your self trust. I also want to invite you into a moment of self compassion, okay? Because rebuilding your self trust isn't just about avoiding bad situations, but it's about handling them when they do come. Even the best laid plans can go wrong. Earlier this year, I took a trip up north to see the almond blossoms at a vineyard here in Portugal. I actually shared this story in a previous episode, but I'm like wouldn't say that I'm a type A person and I wouldn't say I'm a type B person. I'm like a type A minus B plus. I love me a good plan, but I'm also open to just roll with things, right? And so I had this like perfect itinerary planned up when suddenly I was in the middle of nowhere, like literally up in the mountains, under nothing but the stars and the moon, outside of a tiny town of 10,000 people, when I accidentally put the wrong gas in the car, okay? And I tell the whole story in another episode, so if you want to hear that, go ahead and check it out. I will link it in the show notes. But I ended up completely stranded. The car had to be towed, and I was entirely by myself. But here's what happened. I managed to stay calm. I communicated in my third language. And I didn't beat myself up. Instead, I treated myself with compassion. I regulated myself. And then I treated myself to a nice meal while I waited for the tow truck, got back to my hotel, and figured it all out the next morning. That night built so much self trust because I saw how I easily could have panicked. I mean, I was a woman alone in the middle of the mountains at night, stranded, okay? But instead, I handled it. Even after my last breakup, I chose to go on walks, spend time with friends, and make nourishing meals instead of isolating with ice cream like I might have done in the past. That was me showing myself compassion and caring for myself. Those are the moments when life went sideways, when I had no control over it. But I told myself, girl, if nobody else, I got you always. Whether you made a mistake or life was lifing, you can always count on me to take good care of you. And that's how you rebuild self trust. It's like being in a relationship. When something goes wrong with a family member or a romantic partner or even a friend, you show up, you repair it. And that's what brings you closer together. It's going through those hard moments and repairing it. And it works the same way with yourself. Every time you handle what's in front of you with care, with compassion, with love, you deepen the trust you have in your own hands. Now, if you want more help with telling the difference between anxiety versus intuition, learning your body's unique stop and go signs, and rebuilding self trust, don't forget to check out my ebook. It's linked in the show notes. And as we wind down this episode, I want to leave you with a final message. So, if you'd like, please close your eyes, place your hand over your heart, and take a deep breath with me. Inhale to bring yourself into this moment of quiet. Hold it as you settle into stillness, tuning your frequency to intuition. And exhale. Rebuilding self-trust, learning to hear your intuition again. It's not about becoming perfect. It's not about never making another mistake. It's about becoming someone who knows, deep in your bones, in your soul, in your heart, that no matter what happens, no matter how many times life flips the script, you will never abandon yourself. You will choose to listen, to repair, to nurture this relationship you have with you. That's how trust is built, not through perfect decisions, but by showing up for yourself over and over again. So this week, invite in a little stillness. Tune into that quiet place inside where wisdom lives. And remember, your intuition is never gone. It's simply waiting for the static to settle. Take one more deep breath in. Hold it. And exhale. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. Thank you so much for tuning in. I am excited to continue this conversation on rebuilding your sense of self in the next episode, as we address negative self-talk and making your mind your ultimate safe space. I am wishing you a fantastic day and hoping that in the moments that test you most, you can say, I trust myself deeply to show up for me. Bye.